Some of the recent episodes of the Book of Boba Fett have felt more like The Mandalorian. It was a true return to form with the reappearance of the Children of the Watch, adventures on a strange new world, and, of course, Din Djarin getting pulled over by X-Wings. Our favourite Mandalorian just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to run-ins with New Republic law enforcement. Even after trading the charred remains of the Razor Crest for a new N1 starfighter, poor Din still ends up on the wrong side of the law. But the repeated appearance of these X-Wing patrols begs a question. How did the New Republic law enforcement work, exactly? Was it as haphazard as The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett have made it seem, or was there more to it? In this video, we'll be exploring this topic in detail.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
First, a quick disclaimer. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the New Republic as it was in canon today. The New Republic in Legends functioned very differently. What's important to understand about the canon New Republic is that it was rather weak by 11 BBY, as you might expect from a state less than a decade old, and one that had to rebuild galactic society from the ground up. Nominally, it controlled all of the territory of the Old Republic, but in reality, its grasp on the Outer Rim was a formality at best. It didn't even have a firm grip on the core. The New Republic's principles and policies, which were much more open and democratic than the Old Republic's, alienated politicians from many of the most powerful core worlds. These core politicians, who had profited greatly from imperial tyranny, formed a coalition called the Centrists. The Centrists were basically just imperial apologists. They advocated for a return to many imperial-era policies and withheld funding and support from the New Republic when they didn't get their way. This greatly inhibited the New Republic's ability to stabilize the galaxy. Of course, that only made the Centrists more powerful, since their sabotage of the New Republic had the more privileged elements of galactic society feeling nostalgic for the supposed order of the Empire. It didn't help matters that the New Republic chose to disband most of its military after the defeat of the Empire, retaining only 10% of the New Republic defense fleet to protect the Republic capital worlds. Matters of security were mostly left to sector governments, which were given military surplus equipment to form new planetary security forces. To some of you, that might sound familiar. If so, that's because the New Republic's military doctrine was pretty much identical to the post-Ruusan Old Republic's in this regard. Returning to the Old Republic's military doctrine wasn't the worst idea. After all, a similar patchwork of planetary security forces supported by the Judicial Forces and Jedi Order helped the Republic rebuild after the Battle of Ruusan and enter a golden age. Under the Ruusan Reformation, the task of sector security was delegated to those who knew the Republic's sectors best, the beings that actually lived there. It allowed sectors to manage their own defense according to their own traditions and knowledge of local space, with the promise of Republic support if necessary. It was a good system, especially relative to the Republic's pre-Ruusan policy, which relied on a single centralized military force to keep the entire galaxy secure. There was one major difference between the New Republic PSFs and the Old Republic PSFs, however. The New Republic ones tended to be much more unequal. In the days of the Old Republic, the planetary security forces started out on more or less equal footing, since most of the local fleets were composed of units from the former Republic military. Over the centuries, the fleets of poorer sectors deteriorated and those of richer sectors became unnecessarily powerful, but even the poorer PSFs were still able to maintain security. The New Republic fleets were wildly unequal from the get-go, however. The wealthy core worlds, especially militaristic centrist worlds, built up large, powerful fleets, while in the poor rimwood sectors that had been devastated by the Galactic Civil War, the PSFs may as well have not existed. This inequality is likely why we see X-Wings patrolling the Rim in the post-Endor shows. While the New Republic neither had the manpower or the will to police the whole galaxy, it could likely send small patrols of X-Wings from the Defense Force out to problem sectors to assist beleaguered PSFs. In this way, the X-Wing patrols would have fulfilled essentially the same role the Jedi Judicial Forces did during the Golden Age of the Republic, albeit far less effectively. These patrols were likely rare, all things considered, and Din Djarin's regular run-ins with them were probably just bad luck. Aside from the X-Wing patrols, we know the New Republic had marshals on the Outer Rim to keep the peace, and that the New Republic unilaterally handled the containment of particularly dangerous criminals. However, the widespread opinion that the New Republic pretty much didn't exist in the Outer Rim showed that whatever infrastructure the New Republic had in place out there did pretty much nothing. This makes sense, honestly. Small, overextended local militias reliant on second-hand equipment supported by a few X-Wings and Marshals doesn't exactly sound all that effective. Based on that description, you might be wondering if the New Republic wanted the Outer Rim to be lawless. Since the release of the sequel trilogy, many fans have questioned why the hell the New Republic thought it was a good idea to shrink their military, especially considering how lawless the Outer Rim appears to have been. The New Republic did have its reasons, however, and they weren't just matters of blind idealism. Put it simply, they were trying really hard not to be the Empire. The Empire took the exact opposite approach to galactic security. During the Clone Wars, the planetary security forces had been nationalized and merged into the Grand Army of the Republic, and the Empire proceeded to liquidate them, distributing all their useful assets to Imperial military units. The Imperial military and the Imperial Navy in particular policed Imperial territory, and unlike the PSFs, their sector forces answered to military governor generals, not local officials. The Empire ruled the Outer Rim with an iron fist, suppressing pirates and rebels with overwhelming military force. Sector governors, who were often from the core and didn't give a sith about the welfare of the locals, were tough on everything they considered criminal, leading to harsh crackdowns on everyone from actual criminals to innocent non-human populations. The whole system was highly centralized and touted by the likes of Grand Moff Tarkin as an efficient, orderly solution to the perceived lawlessness of the Outer Rim. Here's the deal though. It wasn't efficient, it wasn't orderly, and it wasn't really a solution either. In the days of the New Republic, Empire simps loved to romanticize the supposed order the Empire had brought to the Rim, and how Imperial order was what people really needed, not the so-called freedom espoused by the New Republic. But the Imperial system wasn't orderly, and it did little to actually prevent crime. On the contrary, Imperial sector forces were so hopelessly corrupt, they were virtually criminal cartels. Instead of bringing peace and security to the Outer Rim, they destroyed the peace of countless worlds and brutalized billions of innocents. What's more, the system wasn't even efficient. Even if we ignore the corruption and the vast waste of lives and resources, the Imperial method ran into snags whenever enemies of the Empire crossed sector boundaries, going from one governor's territory to another. Whenever that happened, the sector forces tasked with the pursuit regularly ran afoul of the governor whose jurisdiction they were trespassing in. The result was a turf war between Moffs, during which the criminals or rebels the whole debacle started over usually got away. This was such an effective means of evading Imperial justice that units in the Rebel Alliance actually caused these turf wars on purpose, allowing themselves to get picked up by Imperial forces in one sector, dragging them into another sector, and then sitting back and laughing as the Imperial military apparatus for the whole region destabilized. The Empire successfully managed to replace the hopeless corruption of Republic bureaucrats with even more hopeless corruption of self-important military officers. All the while, the people of the Outer Rim suffered under Imperial purview. For this reason, the New Republic took a very hands-off approach to the Outer Rim. It was better, they reasoned, to govern too lightly than too harshly. Honestly, this reasoning holds up. Even the mess that was the New Republic era Outer Rim was a marked improvement over the tyranny and staggering incompetence of the Empire. Remember lads, Imperial order was a myth and militarization was not a guarantee of security. But what do you think? Do you like Din's sweet new ride? Feel free to let us know all that and more in the comment section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.